Strike three at the knees. Moylan is sharp tonight.
Thunder from down under.
Moylan does the job.
That's going to do it. Yeah. Great job by Peter Moylan.
Welcome back to Baseball Quotin episode 4. I'm Corey. I'm joined by former Braves reliever and Braves analyst Peter Moylan. Peter, thank you for joining us today.
How you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Really good.
So you were one of the, first Australian baseball players to, make their MLB debut in about 2006. But you were also Twins minor leaguer back in 97, 98.
Infamous.
Yeah. I guess now in the age of scouting and development, it's really big in the States with amateur baseball. I guess what was that experience like in Australia?
Well, it was completely different to what I hear the experience is for guys over here. I was pretty good considering in Australian terms, but I was topping out as a high school kid at 84 miles an hour, whereas that would not have got any exposure over here. The scouts over in Australia sort of have to look at us as an untapped market, I guess, or an unexposed market, because we don't get exposure to the kind of travel ball, schedules that kids have over here, and even high school. There's not a lot of high schools in Australia that actually play baseball, so you've got to seek it out. Lucky enough, my dad had an interest in it, and I was able to grab hold of the game. Started off playing t-ball like everyone else, and then went on to play junior baseball. And I didn't make a state team or a representative team until I was 15. So I guess a bit of a late bloomer, and then ended up signing with the Twins as a 17-year-old, very raw kid who still thought he was a shortstop, but was just pitching for the sake of it.
Were you a two-way growing up? Were you a shortstop pitcher?
Yeah, I was actually a shortstop before I was a pitcher. I would close. I'd play shortstop for 8 innings and come in and close. Or later in my career, even when I signed late, I was playing first base for 8 innings, and then I'd come in and close. So I'd always pride myself on being able to hit until I came over here and got exposed to some real pitching.
And when you were pitching with the Twin system, you were overhand at that point, right?
That's right. Yeah, I was. That's all. I mean, I wasn't completely over the top, but I was certainly not where I was towards the end of my career. And I was starting in rookie ball with the Twins too. Yeah, it had been. I actually, I'm not sure if you're going to touch on this, but I went and played in Europe last year, and I started when I was over in Europe last year as well. That was the first time that I'd started since 1996. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Was it difficult kind of going from the, shortstop / closer mindset to kind of being thrust into a starting pitcher role?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't taking it too seriously either. So it was more of like I was taking it seriously. Obviously, I wanted to win and I wanted to do what I could for the team, but it wasn't the level that I was used to. So I went over there and I wanted to not be embarrassed, obviously. But yeah, it was more for the travel than it was for the baseball side of it. But I was lucky enough that the fact that I can play baseball got me a free trip to Europe to go and play over there.
Yeah, it's got to be cool. Kind of back in your time with the Twins, you did 2 seasons with them. Were you released? Did you choose to go back?
It's a great question. I was released.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an infamous incident down at Fort Myers Beach that led to me getting released the next day. And actually, I know it's my own fault. It's not on the Twins at all. I say that where I am now as a person, obviously the route that I took was strange. But it's made me who I am today. And I was a complete moron as a 16, 17-year-old kid. But it made me mature, and it made me grow up. And I wasn't ready for professional baseball life when I first came over here as a 17-year-old. And I guess that's the hard part, is to try and find the kids that are not only physically ready but mentally ready to be away from their parents for that long, and having to go to the baseball field every day. I came from high school, and I thought that high school was the hardest thing in the world. And then I came over to professional baseball, And all of a sudden, professional baseball became the hardest thing in the world because I was getting up early and having to go to the field, and it wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. But that's how you decide who's going to make it and who's not going to make it. The kids that can make it through rookie ball are usually the ones that are going to be okay.
I can only imagine. I mean, being 16, 17 years old, going from high school and your normal life to literally moving across the world, different culture, different mindset, just different, completely everything, and just trying to survive and advance and kind of be not only a professional baseball player, but develop as a man.
And that's the hardest part as a young kid, is that, especially from I could at least speak the language. Think of it as a kid that coming over from Venezuela or Dominican or Puerto Rico or Japan or Panama, these places that English isn't their first language. So yeah, that's the thing that was a real wake up call for me, is that I'm at least able to speak the language. And these guys come over here and they're just like thrown into a hotel and get on the bus at 8 o'clock and hopefully you're going in the right direction. But yeah,
especially kind of signing with the quote unquote major league dream, you're probably promised like big stadiums, high salaries, and then you're in rookie ball with half price apps at Applebee's or something like that.
They didn't exactly sell it as hey, you're going to go straight into the big leagues, but it was it was a different experience. Like, it's not what you expect, and even because I was so naive, I was an Australian kid. Anyone that I told that I was signing professionally instantly thought that I was going to be a millionaire and a big leaguer, especially in Australia, because they're just not exposed to it. They just don't know. So having to explain to everyone that, no, I'm actually worse off than someone washing dishes at the restaurant. It's a hard take for people, and that's why it's so hard for guys that aren't first rounders or aren't high draft picks that don't have the kind of signing bonus to fall back on. They don't get to grind it out for as long as these other guys do, because they need a job. Yeah.
And when you were released, you going back home to Australia, have you written off baseball at that point?
No, definitely not baseball. Maybe my chance at professional baseball. Yeah, 100%. I thought I'd squandered my chance. But at that point I was only 17 and I wasn't even thinking like that. I was thinking, it was more of like a relief. Okay, I don't have to go back now anymore. Yeah. So, which is strange, especially now. But I was a kid. And then, I came back to Australia and continued to work and coach a local Aussie team. And I still love the game and will continue to love the game. I love everything about it. That's why I continued to play and continued to play first base and had a few surgeries back home, but just still continued to just go out there every weekend and play. And lucky enough, I got fortunate enough to get another chance.
You touched on your surgeries. You had, I think, 2 back surgeries, right? That kind of limited your traditional overhand delivery. When did you kind of find out that, the submarine or the 3/4, would work for you, and that not only worked for you, but you had more velocity and movement that way?
Yeah, I was I'd been hitting for 2 years when I decided to shut myself down from pitching. I'd been hitting for 2 years and playing first base. And I was out in the outfield with a couple of guys on the team and we were messing around, and I was messing around with the sidearm motion using the same sort of motion that I did in a swing, but do it as a throw. That was my only mindset. It was just drop my arm angle down and see if I could rotate instead of being over the top. Yeah. And I threw a couple of pitches and it felt pretty good. And then I jumped on the mound and threw a pen. And then it was literally a week later, I jumped in a game and it was effective. And I pitched that whole year and guys would literally not even foul the ball off. So I knew that I was throwing something different. I had no idea about the velocity, obviously, because there's not radar guns at regular local beer league games. Eventually there was an Australian manager, John Deeble, who was the Australian manager at the time, was down scouting other Aussie kids at a practice match. And I happened to pitch in that game. He had the radar gun and came up to me afterwards and said, do you have any idea how hard you were throwing? And the Twins, I topped out at 91. So when he said you were 94 to 96, wow, I was like, okay, something's off, or maybe you might want to hit the gun a little bit, or I don't know what's happening. But that just, from that moment on, it was just an absolute roller coaster ride.
Was, I guess, control ever an issue early on when you first started going submarine?
No, it's funny. It was more sort of, I only threw 4 seams and a slider when I first started. So I guess it was developing my sinker and getting control of the breaking ball. That was really because everybody's a kid, drops down and tries to throw a big frisbee, right? I mean, we've all done it. So I just took it to another level. I guess messed with that frisbee so much that it became an effective pitch for me, and I was able to harness a 2-pitch mix that was pretty effective for a few years.
So you develop a submarine pitch, and then you get the call for the World Baseball Classic in 06. Very effective there. So the World Baseball Classic happens. You get some notice. You get signed by the Braves. And then within a month of the World Baseball Classic, you're in the major leagues.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. I would say, how was that, I guess, for you? Did you ever think that it would be that quick of a ride, or did you think you would be grinding it out in the minors for a while?
No. When I was pitching the WBC, I didn't know I was going to sign with the Braves. I was just pitching as a pharmaceutical rep who was taking 2 weeks vacation to come over and pitch in a tournament. And the next day I had a meeting with the Braves, and they're like, hey, they walked me around the facility. It just happened to be in Orlando when we were playing. Walked me around the facility and said, we want you to come and have a shot at the minor leagues. And I was like, okay, well, in the back of my mind, obviously it was always going to be a yes, but I had, my wife was still, at the time, my wife was still in Australia, and I had to call my boss and say, you might need to find another rep, because I think I'm going to stay here for a few months. So I'd left Australia, packed for 2 weeks, and ended up staying for 8 months and getting to the big leagues and being up and down between Richmond, Virginia, and the big leagues that whole year. It was just fun, man. It was just fun.
You can only imagine. It's got to be just everything moving so quickly for you.
So quickly. Yeah. And I was in AAA for a week. I had 2 outings, and then it was, hey, we need you. And it wasn't, hey, we need you, and we're going to sit for a week. It was, hey, we need you. I got there that day, and then I went to the big leagues, and I pitched that night. So it was, and my first batter was Ryan Howard.
2006 Ryan Howard. Oh God.
Thank you. Exactly. And I don't know if you know about my history against left-handers, but that was not a fun matchup for the rest of my career.
I can only imagine. You're probably shaking. You're like, think about where you were a month ago, and then you're facing, one of the premier power hitters in baseball.
To be honest, I didn't know who it was when I was on the mound. It didn't matter at that point. Now that I have gone back and rewatched it, I know who it was. But at the time, it was just another guy standing in the box.
Yeah. So you signed with them in 06. You had a pretty lengthy career. I mean, mainly with the Braves. You had one stint with Kansas City. But you were primarily a National League pitcher. Kind of going off some of the 2020 rule changes, are you a fan of the DH because of a fan of the DH in the National League, or do you like it kind of the old school way?
Look, that's I go back and forward, right? Or back and forth, I should say. I love the DH in the National League. I never did until I went and played in Kansas City, and I saw how effective it can be to have another 2 hitters at the bottom of the lineup, and it's not just you're not just walking the 8-hole hitter to get the 9-hole guy every time that comes around. I do love at the end of the games when you've got to sort of worry about who's warming up and who's going to come in, but the 3-batter minimum rule, you can take that and you can absolutely no way. That's it's making managers make decisions that are not part of the game. Now I understand that having 10 relievers come into every game is not part of the game either, so there's got to be a happy mix. But watching that first game, in LA, it was like there was just so many pitching changes. It wasn't like it sped up the amount of pitching changes. They did it differently. So I understand they're trying to speed up the game. I do. But at the same time, the game's pretty good at 2 hours and 45 minutes. If it goes 3 hours, it's not that big a deal. 3:05 is not going to kill Major League Baseball. So I just think that there are a few things that I wish they would just leave alone. I wouldn't have had a career if that rule was around. There's a handful of guys. There's plenty of us that wouldn't have had a career had that not been. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I don't think it's a good thing that you're just going to end up with, cookie cutter relievers coming out that all do the same thing. They can all go multiple innings. They all throw 98 and they all just try and blow everyone's doors off. That's not fun either. The walk rates are up. It's just, it's not as exciting as seeing the ball put in play and seeing some action done. Just like you saw. How do you feel about? I'm asking you a question now. How do you feel about the extra inning rule and having the runner start at second base?
I was actually just going to ask you about that. Kind of coming in as a relief pitcher. Let's say you're brought in for the 10th inning to start it. There's automatically man on second. How does that, I guess, alter your mindset?
It doesn't change. It doesn't, because as a reliever, you come in and runners on all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't change your mindset at all. It just means that instead of coming in with a fake runner on second base, you're coming in with a runner on second base, or you're coming in with someone else's runner on second base. It's just it's a runner. It's not yours. It's not anyone else's. It's just you got to deal with it. It doesn't change a reliever's mindset whatsoever.
I know it helped the Braves the other day after Ozuna tied it up. Yeah, they started out I think 3 or 4 straight hits and got 3 runs right on the board.
And that's what's interesting too, is to see how different managers are going to play it. Kansas City laid down a bunt. You know, it's like, how do you do it? And with the international rules, we've had it so that runners will start on first and second. So it's almost 9 times out of 10 you're going to see a guy lay down a bunt, and then I'm going to try and drive him in. You know, occasionally you'll have a guy fake bunt, or occasionally you'll have a guy just try and hit a double, and you know, and it all depends on whether you're a home team or away team. There's so much strategy that's now involved. I enjoy that part of it. I don't enjoy having to expose left-handed pitchers who are good against lefties to make them face right-handed hitters, especially like it's just not the way the game was meant to be played. I think. But and as I said earlier, I also get so frustrated in September when it's like you've got 35 relievers out there and you basically play matchup, because every manager is lining their lineup so it's left, right, left, right, left, right, so you can't get the guys to come in. Yeah. So it's like that's not a way to play it either. So I don't know the solution. I don't envy anybody at MLB. I don't envy anybody at the Players Association, because there is obviously something that needs to happen, but I don't know what the answer is. And if I did, I'd be working for them.
Yeah. I was about to say the kind of the runner on second row, I almost feel is the home team's at a little bit of a disadvantage there.
Right.
Because the away team kind of gets that first crack. I mean, there's, I feel little to no pressure on the away team right there. They get a run or two across, and all of a sudden all the pressure on the home team that they have to do. Like they have
but if they don't get a run across, then the home team's sort of like, well, we just play small ball. So they have an advantage of deciding which way they want to go about it, whereas the away team, they have to either decide to be the aggressor or to play it safe and maybe play for 1 instead of 2. But then that they can score 1 run quite easily if they can get a bunt down. So
that's a good point.
But this is the kind of conversation. This is the kind of thing that I think is good for the game. But I don't think the Marlins getting 12 coronavirus cases is good for the game. But
it's not. I know they canceled that game. They canceled the
Phillies-Yankees game.
Phillies-Yankees game too. I think it's just going to be a snowball effect after that. But I'm hoping that the cases aren't as severe. Everyone can recover fully, and that kind of nixes it at that. But
here's the issue, right? As long as it stays with the Marlins, the Orioles, the Tigers, the Royals, I don't think anybody's going to care. The minute it hits the Yankees, the Braves, the Dodgers, I think that's when people are going to say, okay, well, what are we doing? You got half the league that are just bringing up a bunch of guys from A-ball, so they're not really concerned. But you got guys that are actually, have spent millions of dollars trying to have their rebuild timed for this year. They're going to want the season played.
Yeah. Is that what the Marlins are probably going to do? Are they going to just bring up, some minor league guys, a lot of taxi squad guys?
I have absolutely no idea, man. I don't know how the protocols work. I know that they're, from what I read, I think they're still in Philly. So I honestly don't. I don't know how it's going to work. I hope they can figure it out. Obviously.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, it's a tough situation for not only the team but for Major League Baseball, because this is kind of the first time they got to make that call.
Right. And we're also selfishly, I'm like, just play. It's fine. Just play. But I'm also considered high risk, so I can't go into the studio. I can, but I'm choosing not to go into the studio right now because I'm an asthmatic. So, there's that as well. What do players do if you've got someone in your family who's asthmatic, or you've got someone in your family who's got a history? Like, there's just so much exposure to it right now, especially as the cases in the teams are starting to go up. It's just one thing to look around and see cases going up around the country, but it's like when you see it actually affecting teams, that's when you think, well, now we're in trouble.
Yeah, I can't tell you as a fan how excited I was to kind of just sit down and watch baseball the past couple of days, but especially after, what's going on. I think that it might be put on pause for a little bit, or there's going to be something implemented.
Yeah. I actually watched I think it was the Yankees Nationals game with Smoltzy, and the sound guy, whoever was doing the crowd noise, was so spot on that it wasn't until they did like a wide shot and I saw that there was no one in the crowd that I actually realized that there was no one in the crowd. He was doing such a spot on job with the crowd noises. It felt real. And then contrast to that there was another game I was watching where it was like a 4-second delay was on, and it was just so I couldn't watch it. It was almost like there was a delay trying to order my Taco Bell. It was horrendous.
I'm just picturing some guy in like a sound booth with just like 50 or 60 buttons. Yeah. Like boo, cheer, normal. Just having to
hit the wrong button.
Yeah. I know I have a couple buddies who are Mets fans, and going back to the Braves Mets game a couple days ago when I was going to hit the home run. After he hits the home run, Diaz gets out of the inning. There was applause. Normal Mets game, not so much.
Not so much. No, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's just they talked about it the other day with these a lot of young rookies that are coming up too, and whether it's going to help them. I think yes, it will help them as far as their ability to get the job done. But it's not the real big league experience for these guys. Like this isn't what I'm sure they're probably nervous, and I'm sure they've probably got adrenaline. But you wait until the stadium's full and people are cheering or screaming for you. Like that's the big league experience that a lot of these kids are missing. And I'd really hope that at some point they can experience it.
And then you go into a rival's ballpark for the first time. You have all that kind of going for you.
Bro, when I went to Shea for the first time, it was the most ridiculous place that I've ever been. And it's still my favorite stadium that I've ever pitched in was Shea Stadium, because you could just feel how much they hated the fact that I was wearing a Braves uniform. And the stands it was like they built the stands like that. So somehow it was a dome. I felt like everyone was sitting on top of me while you're on the mound. It was just the place was falling apart. There was bits of metal everywhere that you could probably cut yourself on walking to the bullpen, but it was just an experience. It was awesome.
I'm actually from Long Island, and my father is a Mets fan. So I'm probably going to apologize because he probably dragged me to Citi Field and I probably booed you a couple times while you were there.
I loved it. I love everything about New York. I loved going there. I was just telling someone the other day that it's the whole big league experience that a lot of these guys are not going to get to experience. It's not just obviously going to the field and playing baseball is amazing, but it's the travel, it's the team dinners, it's the bus trips where you're joking around, and it's the long trade rides from Washington to Philly. It's those sort of things that I think the heart and soul of the big leagues and the big league experience that these guys are unfortunately going to miss this year. But let's just hope that they get a chance to see what the real big league is all about.
Yeah. Hoping 2021 everything goes back to normal, but I mean you can only hope. Yeah. Praying too. Yeah. Kind of last thing for you. Is there any sort of kind of quote, motto, anything that's particularly important to you, or something that you base your playing career on, or something that you went to kind of get inspiration?
Yeah, my dad actually gave me a plaque when I was a complete, excuse my French, you're going to blurt this out, fuck up as a 17-year-old. He gave me a plaque and it sort of said, if it is to be, it's up to me. And I know it's a pretty common saying, but at the time I'd never heard it before, and it kind of stuck with me a little bit as a 17, 18-year-old. But as I got older, I always go back to that because, I've been injured a lot, and I've had to come back from a lot of shit. But in the back of my mind, I always had that saying that no one else is going to do this for you, dude. Like, if this is going to happen, it's on you. So, different version of the same thing, but I've always dug deep and sort of used that as a little bit of a reminder that this isn't going to happen for me. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah. If you want something, you got to go out there and get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Of course, man.
All right. Stay safe out there. Yeah. Go Braves.
Let's go.